Microsoft recently unveiled a bunch of new features, a bunch of new things happening with the Copilot feature that they're rolling out on Microsoft. And Connor, of course, the celebrity he is, was in the room. You got to see he posted this post on LinkedIn recently of him being in the same room, mere feet away from Mustafa Suleiman, who leads AI over at Microsoft, who's kind of giving a bunch of these announcements. And Connor, in his post, breaks down essentially everything that happened in this. But you got to see the post. I mean, this thing's got over 500 likes. Connor, just the internet celebrity he is, has an amazing takeaway. So we're going to kick this over. And I guess, what was your biggest takeaways? What was the most exciting things you got out of this, out of these announcements?
So the thing that I loved about this was super honored to be able to go there to, as Jaeden said, it was a pretty small event actually. Like Microsoft didn't really announce this a ton. But it was Mustafa Suleiman himself being in the room. If you don't know who he is, he founded Google DeepMind, and then he wrote The Coming Wave, which is a big book around AI and what's going to happen in the future. And then he went over and started Inflection. If you remember Inflection, they started their chatbot called Pi. Big investors. I definitely know Bill Gates and others. I think that got up to about a $4 billion valuation, something like that. But it didn't seem to be able to compete with some of the bigger players. And then Microsoft sort of did this acqui-hire for I think $650 million, really to get Suleiman in the door, I think, and to have him run to run AI for Microsoft, but essentially hired the entire Inflection team over, which is now what these big AI companies are doing. So Suleiman is a giant in this space. He's up there with Sam Altman and Dario Amodei, who started Anthropic and some of these other big players. So very cool to hear him talk about it. My big takeaway on this was, so Copilot, if a lot of organizations are probably using Copilot. This is the Microsoft add-on. It allows you to use essentially ChatGPT under the hood, but it really also adds on features into all of your Microsoft suite of tools, Word and Outlook and Excel and PowerPoint, etc. And Jaeden and I have talked a lot about this because one of the challenges, as you all know out there, I think, is that we'll buy these licenses, but then whether people are using them or not is a different story. Of course, you'll use the things that make Excel a little easier, PowerPoint a little easier, but will you also use the Copilot, like the feature that's like the ChatGPT, talking to it? So the really cool thing, Jaeden, is there were some cool things that they announced that I want to kind of talk about, but the thing right off at the top was Suleiman gets up there and he said a few things that I took notes on here that I just want to sort of tell you, because it felt like more of a here's how we're going to look at the world differently rather than, oh, here's the new features. And there were a few of those which I want to point out. Number one was that the big change is that we're no longer learning computer languages. Computers are learning our languages. That is huge. It's sort of like it's what we talk about the learning curve being totally disrupted. You don't have to sort of spend all this time learning computer languages. They're going to learn yours. You just have to talk to it like a human. That's number one. The second thing is that he made a point to say Microsoft really went out and interviewed a ton of people to find out what they want. Now, that's not really unusual, but the way that Suleiman, who's really brilliant, was talking about this was that they did it really long form. They really tried to hear under the sense, not just we need help doing this, like what are people feeling? And what I think Microsoft came away with, and I really respect them from Microsoft. I really like what Microsoft does. Obviously, I love their tools, but I want to see more from them sometimes. And I loved this, that they were like, people are feeling overwhelmed. That was the overwhelming sense that they were getting from just humanity, from information, from social media, from the hype, from the FOMO, everything else. And he was saying, that's our North Star and how we're creating our AI. How do we make people's lives just easier, right? You have to have one North Star. You can't have 50 priorities. So I love that. And the third thing was around hallucinations. He's like, I don't know exactly when we're going to solve hallucinations, but what we're really focusing on with AI, and Jaeden, I want you to kind of hear this one too, is that it's not just about the hallucination, getting it right. It's about whether your tool knows that it might not be totally confident, right? So it's like when it's giving biographies and things like that, it's like, hey, who's Jaeden Schafer? And so instead of Microsoft being like, oh, Jaeden did this and this and this, it says, well, this is what I know about Jaeden Schafer, but also I think that I know this, but definitely double check that. So right off the bat, I thought that was really cool how Microsoft was approaching it. And then Jaeden, I'll just kind of toss a couple of things out here. They have a new voice feature, which he was demoing live. Very brave to demo voice live, I will say. That was kind of awesome. Copilot Vision, which again is just sort of like upping the ante. This is sort of still experimental, but it can look at the content on your screen. They also have now taken what's it called? Oh, the O1, ChatGPT O1, which is that kind of deeper reasoning model, and they call it Think Deeper. So that's like their own spin on it, but it's the same kind of thing. Some things like Copilot Daily, which is just, it's going to kind of spit out news, things like that. But so those were some of the big things. And Jaeden, I'll pause because I want to talk about another demo too. But when I talk about that, like Mustafa Suleiman's big vision for people who are overwhelmed, his big vision for hallucinations being all about trust, his big vision for we don't have to learn their language, they're learning us. Like that struck me as pretty profound. I don't know how that sounds to you hearing it secondhand though.
Yeah, no, I think the two things that really struck me that are the most interesting, number one is the hallucination piece and how confident it is in its hallucination, because we've been trying to solve this a number of different ways. We have the route that like U.com and Perplexity are doing, where it's like we're trying to cite every single line. And that's like a decent way to try and mitigate hallucinations, because if you're like unsure about a certain fact, you can go look it up. But even that's not great. And I've seen ChatGPT still argue with people, like in screenshots that people post about some sort of topic or other, and then you like really have to show proof exactly of why it's wrong. And it's like, oops, I'm sorry, like I was wrong about that. And like, it's not bad that these things aren't perfect, that they don't get everything right, but it's like you want it to know and admit when it's unsure about something instead of being 100% confident. Because I think that's what throws people off the most. So that's amazing that that's a big focus and priority for them. And then the next thing that I am so excited about is the whole vision piece. This is where I think Microsoft is going to shine. Right now, they got their Copilot. It's like ChatGPT. It can answer questions. It's like, whatever. If I really wanted a Copilot, I mean, I don't care if it's built into my computer. I'm just going to use ChatGPT or Perplexity or like Anthropic, one of these tools that I know they've already got like a lot of their own in-house great functionality built in. Where I think Microsoft shines is this next wave of essentially the AI and the Copilot being able to see what's on your screen and take and execute on tasks for you. And it's exciting to me to see that this is something that Microsoft is focusing on. And right now, people are like, oh, but it can't really do that much. Like, maybe it'll open up an email or go grab a tab and like search for like a little thing for you. But it's like the implications are pretty crazy, because if it can do those small things, with time, it can do the big things. It can do the, hey, book me a whole trip with these things. And it's interesting because Apple's also doing it with their iPhone with Apple Intelligence, which is of course not rolled out yet. But I think Microsoft is going to be able to do this on desktop. And the reason why it's important is because not everyone has an Apple device and not everyone has a PC. So it's just like you need all of these platforms at the platform level to be rolling out this software. And I think that's really exciting.
It's super cool. No, it's such a good point, and it kind of feeds into the demo that, interestingly enough, that I was sort of excited about. So Mustafa Suleiman did a demo of the Vision, which is not really rolled out yet, but it was somebody like on Netflix and saying, hey, you know my taste. What do you think I would like? And they'll say, well, here, out of these 20 movies that I can see, this one's kind of interesting because blah, blah, blah. Do you want to hear more about it? So it really is a kind of a co-pilot in that way. It can see what you see. That's huge. And it leads me into something he didn't talk very much about, but something that you and I did a lot on and kind of blew up the world the other day, which was what they call Recall, which is Microsoft on their PCs having Recall, which takes a screenshot of your screen every few seconds or whatever. And then you can say, hey, I was looking for this thing, something on flowers. What did I see? Or, hey, wasn't somebody telling me about? You can imagine it's basically watches over your shoulder, watches everything you're doing on screen, and holds that in its local memory. I remember we were all kind of freaked out about that. I also think that is absolutely the future. I don't love it. I wouldn't want it now. But I saw a demo of it, and it's not live yet, but they gave a few of us a demo. And Jaeden, it is so much better than I thought it would be. And here's why. They have very simple controls onto when you can toggle it off, when you can toggle it on. Like if you looked up your banking information but forgot to toggle it off, later you can just say, hey, did you see my bank? It's like, yeah, these 6 times. You want to just delete all of that? Yes, I want to delete all of it. Big, friendly user interface. Now stop. Like if you're about to go on something and you want to shop for your wife for something, you're like, well, I don't want her to see this, so you toggle it off. It was just, now I don't know how effective it's ultimately going to be, because taking a screenshot of your screen every few seconds doesn't really capture everything given how the pace at which you move, but it's definitely helpful. And I just think that I think we're all freaked out about it, but just remember that this is the future, whether you like it or not. And second of all, they're already in a spot where they're really thinking about how to protect people's data. So that's the thing that I was really excited about coming out of that, ironically.
Yeah, no, I think that's the thing that's like sort of dystopian, sort of controversial, but also very interesting. And there's a lot of like very obvious, exciting use cases. It's also unique and new. So yeah, I think that's the thing that a lot of people are excited about. Yeah, any other big takeaways you got from this that was interesting?
Yeah, I mean, we test drove the voice. It was just, they did some cool Microsoft stuff. There was a phone booth where you could talk to the voice, everything else. I think the thing that I've seen more and more, and Suleiman was talking about this as well, is it's all going to be about how you interact with this thing. And one of the I was in an even smaller Q&A with Suleiman, and the question that I asked him around that was, Copilot is sort of two things. One is extra features on the tools you already use, Word, Excel. And then the other is this total behavioral change of having this friendly thing. It's funny, Suleiman, all the examples he gave were very personal. He was saying, this is the feedback we got. Hey, my mother was sick from cancer. I have to figure out blah, blah, blah. Or, hey, I'm feeling really down about this. And it was so personal. And I love that Microsoft didn't just go for the productivity. They said, this is going to be a new way of interacting. We can have our issues with it. We can say, well, it's going to kill the social contract between humans, blah, blah, blah. I don't buy that personally. I just think this is the future. But I love that Microsoft really went hard onto, this is how we are going to make your life better. This is how we're going to make you more human, make you allow you to express your feelings, all that kind of stuff. I just thought it was awesome. And they didn't just go for productivity. And I thought it was a huge win for Microsoft. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, super exciting. Microsoft is an unexpected, incredibly innovative company coming into this whole AI cycle. So really excited to follow along, and we'll keep you up to date. Connor's going to keep giving you the inside scoop that you can't get anywhere else because he gets the exclusive invites to the Mustafa Suleiman. Did you shake his hand, by the way? Did you talk to him?
I'm kidding you. Yeah, I busted through little kids to shake his hand.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. We would expect nothing less. All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for tuning into the podcast. The last thing I will mention is if you're like, oh my gosh, this is fascinating. Connor has some incredible insights. He's with all the cool people. You need to take his AI course. This thing is life-changing. If you haven't taken it already, this is going to completely shift the way that you use AI, the way that you look at it. He's got some really interesting frameworks that I like that I think are very evergreen, right? You worry sometimes with these courses like, oh, is it going to teach me something that's going to be useless in like 2 weeks when some updates come out? He built it for that. This guy has been in academia for a long time, so he understands how to actually create something that is going to be valuable for you. So highly recommend his course. Go check it out. The link is in the description. Otherwise, I hope you all have an incredible rest of your day, and we will catch you in the next episode.